Hey everyone, Keith Lackner here. I want to take a few minutes and talk to you guys about bowls. Now, bowls are a great project for beginners or weekend hobbyers or actually professionals. A lot of professionals I know make a living off just making bowls and going to shows and selling them or having them in galleries. I have galleries out there that actually sell my bowls. Now, I know what you're thinking. Do they have resin in them? No, they don't. These are actual full wooden bowls that I actually sell. This is kind of how I got started wood turning is making bowls. So I'm going to take you through the steps that I do to show you how to make just a regular, this is a 10-inch bowl, this is white oak, it's going to one of my galleries. All the way up to, if you want to do a bigger bowl, we've got 14-inch bowls, or if you really want to press your limits in your luck, we've got big 18-inch salad bowls. Now these are actually going to take a lot more skill. I don't recommend turning anything bigger than probably a 10-inch in the very beginning. That should probably be about the max that you're turning. But I want to show you how to set your lathe up and the safest way to turn these bigger bowls as well as the smaller bowls. So stay tuned with this. Here's our pith. We want to make sure that we stay away from the pith. That's why this is all going to be scrap right through here. And we're going to be able to get two nice small bowl blanks. One thing that's important is if you see the way the annular rings are growing this way, we want to make sure that we have our bowl going in the same direction as the annular rings. If we turn it the other way and actually have our bowl blanks coming this way, it's going to fight against the annular rings and it's going to move itself out. The only time that you would actually ever do this is if you want to have a natural bark line on the rim of your bowl. That's the way that you would harvest this piece of wood. But for regular bowls, this is exactly how you want to cut it. You want to eliminate that pith, get it completely out of there, because the pith is going to crack. That's all that really is going to happen with the pith. If you leave it in, you're just going to end check it and it's going to crack out as it's starting to dry. Okay, so here we have ourselves a nice 6-inch bowl blank. We're going to actually cut it so that it's going to be 3 inches deep. So all we're going to do, let's come here, mark 3. Now before we cut it round, we're going to make a first cut on our bandsaw to relieve this so that we can actually stand it upright and then turn it around and cut a radius. Okay, now one thing that I do is I actually have a bunch of these little patterns, these little circles, templates with a hole in the dead center. I've got them all the way from 6-inch all the way up to 20-inch. It just makes it a lot easier for me to lay out exactly where I want my bowl to be. So we're just going to draw a circle around. This is a beginner bowl. These are the bowls that I teach in classes and I recommend if you're just getting into bowl turning. The most important thing is to start out small and then work yourself big. If you have a big lathe like I have, this is a PowerMac 3520B. It's actually designed so I could actually turn 20 inches diameter, and I have used all of that. We're going to use most of it for when I turn the 16-inch bowl blank that I have over there. But for now, we're going to start out small. I'm going to show you exactly how to mount this in. My lathe is on high, meaning the belts are in the high mode. This is actually where I want to be on the smaller pieces. I don't have to worry about changing anything. When I get to the larger blank, I will actually have to change and step down to low speed. And I'll show you how to do that and why we do that. So let's take a minute review before we get started. Here's our bowl blank, and here's basically what we want to do. We want to have a roughed out bowl blank. So here is the top of the bowl and here's the bottom of the bowl. What we're going to do is secure it to the lathe with our worm screw, and then we're going to turn away the bottom, give it a rough shape. We're going to throw in a tenon so we can turn it around, put it inside our 4-jaw chuck, and then hollow out the inside and then get it ready for drying. Okay, so we've got our bowl mounted in there. One thing we're going to have to make sure we pay attention to is the grain orientation. On bowls, all of this right here, this is all side grain. Okay, so we've got side grain, and then this right here we have is our end grain. Okay, so when we're cutting, it's actually very important that we support the fibers the entire time. So that's why when we start up, we're going to cut from right to left. Okay, so now that we're done with the 6-inch bowl, I'm going to show you the steps that I do for a 12-inch bowl. We're basically going to start out with the exact same steps that we did for the 6-inch bowl as we do for the 12-inch bowl. Okay, so we got to the point where we've got the back part of it rounded out, and now we're going to hollow out the inside of it. I want to show you two different methods on how to hollow this thing out. If you're going to do this full time for a living, I'm really going to suggest you invest the money and do it the second way that I'm going to show you. But this way is going to be just really good, quick, fast, easy way to get this thing down, ready for drying. The most important thing to do is when we're getting these ready to dry, make sure we leave 10% of the wall thickness all the way throughout this whole bowl. And if you also notice, another trick that I did is I actually rounded the corners. One thing rounding corners does is actually take some of the stress away from it, so as it's drying, you get a less likely chance of it cracking out. Okay, so as you can see right here, I'm right at an 11-inch. I've got an 11-inch bowl. I'm probably going to be closer to about 10 3/4 by the time this thing is completely dried out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, that's about 1 1/8 inches. So we'll figure about 1 1/4 inches right here. So this right here is how thick we want to leave this bowl through the drying process. All we're going to do is just make sure that we keep this 1 1/4 inch wall thickness even all the way down through, all the way to the bottom. Okay, so there's going to be a few differences between the big 16 inches and the 8-inch and the 12-inch bowls that we turn. One of the things I'm going to show you is that, one, I have it on a faceplate. It's a lot more secure this way than just having it on a worm screw. Only having one little contact point to hold this big blank in. When this blank gets spinning and you start putting pressure on it, it could actually strip the threads. It could take off on you. With it secured to a faceplate, you don't have to worry about any of that. I also have my tailstock engaged. It's very important to always make sure you have your tailstock engaged. Even if you're just turning off a faceplate. It actually is secure. In the very beginning, when this thing takes off, it's not centered, it's gonna wobble. You will see this big lathe actually start to rock on me. This lathe, I believe, weighs about 650 pounds, and this lathe will actually start to rock. I have a big 4224 in the background there. I've actually had that one also rocking. So it just goes to show you actually the power of these blanks when they're actually not centered, what damage they could actually do. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to gear down my lathe. This is a very important step when you're turning these big, huge bowl blanks. High speed is just too much for it. Your lathe really can't handle it too much. As you're starting to lay into it and round it out, you will actually see, and I'm going to show you here, I'm going to leave it in high and I'm going to start to turn a little bit. You'll see this big lathe actually start to bog down. I'm going to switch the belts in it, go into a lower gear, and you'll see I'll actually be able to power through these cuts. All right, so one important thing to actually remember too for a safety standpoint is when you get these big bowls in, always make sure that your speed is all the way down. You always want it at 0 when you turn your lathe on. Last thing you want to do is have it set at, if you were spindle turning beforehand and you had your lathe set up at like 2400 RPMs, you put this big honker in there, you're really going to get your lathe to walk across the shop on you. Or worst case scenario, it will actually launch out of your lathe. So I got my speed all the way down. I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to bring it to a comfortable speed before I feel it start to, right there, I can feel it's actually, you can see as my Allen wrench is starting to dance a little bit, so I'm going to leave it at about 500 RPMs for now, just around it. I'm going to show you, I'm actually going to bog this thing down. Okay, so as you can see, we started out about 500. As I started putting some good pressure into it, started removing some material, it actually started to bog itself down. I looked over and saw it get to about 300 RPMs. And if I would have continued pushing through, it would have actually brought it all the way down to maybe 100, 125. So here's the important thing. Every lathe that's got, well, almost every lathe, a variable speed, they've got an access panel right here where you open it up. You've got your belt settings. They have a little diagram on the front. Yours may be on the inside, but on the Powermatics, they're on the outside. So this right here tells me here's the pulleys and here's the belt, tells me high. I want to get my belt over to this side that says low. I actually want to be in low gear. So what I'm going to do, loosen this knob right here, lift my motor up, get that belt off. Put a little weight on it. I run it, there it goes. That belt just seated. These are V-groove belts, so I wanted to make sure that it would actually seated inside. Push down, lock it back down. There we go, now we're in low. This is actually gonna help us on these bigger bowl blanks. So again, I'm not round, so I brought my speed all the way back down to 0 again. I'm gonna slowly bring it up. As you can see, you may not be able to see, I'm spinning further on my dial to get up to 300 right now. I'm actually almost halfway around. A little bit more. There's 440. Here's 460. We're going to leave it right there for now. One thing's very important to look at. I'm turning and I'm removing. My speed's not dropping. I'm not losing power at all through these cuts. Okay, so we got the big 16-inch bowl blank roughed out. We've got a really nice shape onto it. Now it's time to turn it around and put it on the lathe. Now, one thing that's really important is here's the chuck that we were using for the first two. It's about a 2.5-inch chuck. Problem is, you're not going to be able to use this 2.5 for a 16. The rule of thumb is always make sure you have 40% of your total diameter in a chuck. So we're going to be putting a lot of side pressure on these big bowls. You will actually, if you try to use this smaller chuck on a bigger bowl blank, you will actually snap it. There's just so much side pressure. That little bit that's only holding on, it's going to snap it right off. So if you're going to turn bigger bowls, yes, you will need to invest in a big chuck. This is my big Vic Mark. I've got 8-inch jaws on it right now. So I'm able to turn anything up to 20-inch. I think these are about the biggest set that they make. They might actually have one set. I think they might be bigger. I think they may go to 10s. But I have the 8-inch. They do really good for me. So this is what we're going to do. We're actually going to put it in the lathe, reverse it, and I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, so now we got it turned around. It's in the big chuck. We've got it faced off. Now here's how I want to show you how I actually prefer to hollow out my bowls. I send my bowls off to galleries and I do shows, and to me, if you're going to do big bowls like this is going to be a, let me see, I think I'm running about 15, yeah, I'm about 15.25. If I just make a 15.25-inch bowl, I'm wasting out on a lot of profit and I'm actually adding a ton of waste to my process. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to core these out. So again, it's 10%, so I'm going to come in right there. So I'm going to get one 15-inch bowl blank right there. I'm going to use the McNaughton system. Whether you use the McNaughton or the one-way, or there's other companies that are coming out now, it really doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to spend too much time showing you how I set up my McNaughton system. Mike Mahoney has a really great video out there. I suggest just going out, renting it, buying it off of the internet and following that. He goes into a really good in-depth instruction on how to use the McNaughton. There's a lot of things online, so go ahead and download or look at all of those. I'm just showing you that this is the way I do it. So I'm going to get a 15-inch bowl. The cutter on my McNaughton is about a 1/2 inch, so this is going to be waste. So that's going to leave me with an 11-inch bowl. So by the time it dries out and everything, it'll be about a 10-inch bowl, which is great because I sell, majority of my bowls are between the 14 to 12, and then I also sell the 10s. So that range right there is where I really like to be at. So with that being said, we're going to go about 1 inch right here. Now, just so we don't get confused, so here's one bowl, here's two bowls. Let me see where I'm going to be at. I might get 3, maybe. I'll do it just for me. Sometimes I need a little tiny bowl around the shop or a bowl in the kitchen. Okay, so we've got all of our bowls hollowed out now. These are ready to dry. One important thing to me is that you should always twice turn your bowls, meaning you turn them, they're still soaking wet. We're gonna seal them, set them off to the side for about 3 to 6 months, and then come back to them and finish turning them. I'm gonna show you how to do that in the next video. But for right now, we've gotta protect these. We actually have to seal the end grain. By doing that, I just got some anchor seal I picked up at, I believe it was Woodcraft. And all we're gonna do is just paint it. Paint it and then you forget about it. Another good thing to remember too is when you store your wood, don't put it in a place where, don't put it outside, don't put it next to a heater or nothing. If you don't have a place that stays nice and cool, like a basement, or you're lucky like me and have an air-conditioned shop, you're gonna have to find a place to where it doesn't get hit with all the different climate changes. It doesn't get hot and then cold and hot and then cold and hot and cold. You kind of want these to keep at a constant cool temp the entire time while they're drying. The first couple of months of these things drying are the most critical. This is where they're really gonna crack. One other thing to make sure you pay very close importance to is that you've got an equal wall thickness all the way down. The last thing you want to do is be really heavy in one spot. That's actually it's going to dry at a different rate. So when that happens, it's going to move differently. When that happens, it's not going to move. Everything next to it wants to move. Boom, it's going to crack on you. So we're just painting. I paint the whole thing. There's people I know that only paint the end grain. You know, that's fine, but I like to paint the whole thing. We went through all this time to harvest the wood, rough it out. Why take the chance now? Again, just a reminder, one of the most important things when you're setting this up is make sure that you round all your edges off. You have no hard edges. Okay, so this one is ready. Now, if you're only going to do this on a small scale, one thing that you could look into if you don't have a storage spot is actually painting it up, putting it inside a brown paper bag, write the date and the time on it and weigh it, and then put it in with the actual shavings, the wet shavings that you just got done milling. You're going to have plenty of them on the floor, as you can see behind me, and just forget about it. The problem is for me, I don't do that process because I actually, when I turn bowls at a large scale for galleries and for sales. So I don't want to have, you know, 100, 200 brown paper bags just laying all over the shop, all pinned up somewhere. So I actually have a dedicated cabinet. I have a kiln actually that I store these in and let them air dry, or actually kiln dry. If I got a big run, I'll do it. If I just got a couple of bowls that I want to do because I got a phone call that somebody just lost a tree, I'll go over there. I won't really run my kiln for it, so I'll just do this process, tape them up, throw them in the corner of my shop and forget about them. Now here I'm getting started on that nested bowl set. As you can see, I ended up with 3 bowls out of this. So instead of just selling 1 bowl, I'm able to sell 3 bowls. So I've actually, if you figure, I mean, just for a ballpark example, you sell this big bowl for $120, you would have only been able to sell, you know, make profit $120 from that bowl blank, but you got $120, you potentially have about another $65, and then maybe another $30 bowl, so you netted an extra $90 out of this. And you know, especially seeing some of these really nice hollowing systems, you know, I think I paid $500 each for mine. As you can see, you profit $90 per bowl blank. It doesn't take long to justify actually going out and buying a coring machine. And it's all about using the most you can out of the wood too, so it just makes perfect sense to you know, actually get a coring machine. And that's it. Now the bowls are ready to go sit off in the corner, or actually I'll stage them in my kiln, and I'll come back to them in the winter time, about 3 to 4 months, and they'll be ready for Christmas presents. All right, thanks for watching.